There are only two countries or two states other than ours which allow clerics into the lawmaking governing body. That is Vatican City and Iran. And we are the third. Clerics form a part of the House of Lords. Now, organisations like electoral reform are certainly not great fans of the House of Lords. And I also happen to think the House of Lords is in need of some reform. I don't think it's in need of a recasting, partly because I think there's something that has happened in our society recently with the elected assembly. That is the House of Commons. And that is instead of being a place where we can expect informed debate and where people will change their minds, we're getting a sort of tribalism and a sloganizing. And there is no interchange of information. There is simply bullying, demonstrably in the House of Commons, and whipping, and a lack of scrutiny. There is scrutiny, there is debate, and there is proper conversation, even some accountability. Let's see what Bay's got to say about it. And in the end, I think it's likely the House of Lords is going to change dramatically. But for the time being, while the House of Commons is failing, we actually need the House of Lords. More than that, and this is the controversial bit, because there could be plenty of ways of scrutinising government legislation and questioning it. For example, the media could be doing that job, but the media is proving equally to be lackluster, ineffective, and corrupt. But I think there's two people who should be in the House of Commons, or in the House of Lords, and they were both in the House of... Well, one of them was in the House of Commons, one of them was never. There's two people who should never be in the House of Lords. So let's start with the never should be. One is Burko, who soiled his copybook really badly. The other one is Nadine Dorries, who demonstrates absolutely that she has no right. She's petulant and sort of Violet Elizabeth in big time. But the two who should be in the House of Lords are Farage and Boris Johnson. And you're going to immediately think, oh my goodness, he's completely flipped. No, I haven't. And I've said the thing about Farage before, because the thing about the House of Lords is the people who are there can be held to account, can be compelled to appear in the House and explain themselves and be questioned. There is nothing to compel Farage or to compel Boris Johnson to explain themselves and be questioned and to be held to account for the extraordinary direction that our country has taken in the last 10 years. And Farage and Boris Johnson are at the helm of that process. They must be held accountable. They must be called to answer questions. And I think they're both in a position to give us direction and give us advice, even if we don't want it. I think these two people are the architects of the Brexit that we've got. And the fact that both of them are out of politics at the moment is a shocking indictment on the way our politics have developed. We shouldn't be, if we were not thinking in such a tribal and narrow way, we would make sure that we had the voices of Farage and Boris Johnson to hand, and that we were in a position to question them. Instead, we have silenced both of them in the places where they should be held responsible. and to have Farage pontificating in GB News and Boris pontificating in a column every week in the Mail. This is absurd. It's back to front, it's upside down. They must both be put in the House of Lords. And a wise and thoughtful Prime Minister would make sure that happened as soon as possible. Whether the House of Lords continues in its present form, I don't know. It's in need of reform, as I say. I don't think it's in need of wholesale reform in terms of producing a mirror version of the House of Commons. No, not until we get the House of Commons right can we do the same thing to the House of Lords. We need one chamber at least that is stable. My preferred proposal for the House of Lords would be, number one, a House which is smaller than the House of Commons. Number two, a House which is elected on a progressive basis, so to the extent that as few as 5 or 10 seats come up for election every year, so that there is never a wholesale election of the House of Lords. Even the American system does not manage to deal with that problem. We need to make sure that one of the houses is not controlled by the other. And that means we have to have people appointed or elected to the House of Lords on a very, very slow revolving basis. I think there is room and there is a way to elect people like that. I don't quite know at the moment what it is, but I think that's the way forward. And I think that's probably something of the sort of thing that Gordon Brown would be thinking of. But we shouldn't rush into this. The first thing we should do is make sure that there is proper debate. And we should make sure that's happening in the House of Commons as well as in the House of Lords. We shouldn't silence or squash debate. And that means we need to encourage people who do not share our opinions to talk. Now, the other thing I would point out, just in response to one or two people who've made comments, is, yes, although I'm very keen on dialogue, I think dialogue has an end and a goal, and that's resolution, and that is action. So I don't think we should be constantly chattering. That is madness. We should be having a proper discussion, a proper debate, and reaching a resolution.